Throughout the season, we have seen a lot of stuff happen, and we've seen a lot of young teams take certain strides to the next level. Most notable ones being the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Houston Rockets. These are teams who, at one point, were young and just up-and-coming teams in the league, just focused on developing their talent to one day be contenders in the league. And now you look up today, and that's exactly what they are. Cleveland Cavaliers are a top seed in the East, the Thunder are the top seed in the West, and the Rockets are a top seed in the West as well. And these teams have seen monuments of success all season, just work that is paying off from years before. But there's one team that was mentioned in the same breath as these teams that isn't seeing that same type of success. That's none other than the Orlando Magic. The Magic currently sit as a 9th seed in the Eastern Conference with a 26-29 record at the recording of this video. And that's a huge step back than what they were in the past. Past couple of seasons, the Orlando Magic were one of the top teams in the league. Known for their defense, Paolo and Franz, the Magic have been a pretty big force in the East and looking like the same type of young team that the Cavs were. Just a team that could be a force in the East to compete with the Cavs and maybe take that top spot in the East. But this season, it has been the exact opposite of that, and honestly, it couldn't have gone more wrong for the Magic. The Magic have struggled all season with injuries and an ability to put out a productive offense. And that's kind of wild to say, especially considering that we're in arguably the greatest offensive time in the league. So how can a team like the Orlando Magic consistently put out one of the worst offenses that we have ever seen? That, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the worst offenses of all time. Now, it's not uncommon for a team to go through ups and downs throughout the season, like the Magic had, and it's not uncommon for a team to have a down season, like the Orlando Magic are having. But this season has just been a bit different from what the Magic are used to and from what anybody expects. One of the main reasons why the Orlando Magic have struggled so much this season is their inability to shoot. And we all know, in this day and age, if you can't shoot, you can't win. It's quite simple. And the Orlando Magic are pretty much embodying that statement. They can't shoot and they aren't winning. From 3 this season, the Orlando Magic are shooting a league worst 30% from 3. That means out of every 10 threes they shoot, they're only going to make 3 of them. That is horrible, and that is one of the worst marks in the season of the past couple of seasons. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I heard somewhere that it was the worst mark that the Magic have seen from beyond the arc since their inaugural season in 1990. That is horrible. Imagine shooting worse than a team in the 2000s and the 90s. That is all-time bad, and it makes sense as to why the Magic have stunk it up all season long. Especially when you have individual players like Paolo, Franz, Jalen Suggs, and other players on that roster have seen a significant drop, or not significant, but a drop in their shooting numbers. This makes it pretty hard for them to win if they can't shoot the ball in the basket. The Magic have been horrible all season, and on top of that, when you go down this roster, it's pretty clearly that you can see that the Magic don't really have a bunch of reliable shooters or scorers on this roster, especially outside of Paolo and Franz. And this inability to shoot has led to a league worst offense, as the Magic are only putting up 104 points per game this season. And although they're shooting a decent 46.4% from the field, which isn't a horrible field goal percentage, the fact that you're only putting up 104 points per game is pretty bad. There's no way you're going to win in this modern NBA putting up that low amount of points per game. And it goes back to their lack of ability to stretch the floor and the fact that they don't really have a consistent scoring threat outside of Paolo, who has been injury-riddled this season. So when you combine that, of course you're going to struggle offensively. And until that turns around, even if Paolo comes back, you still realistically need some additional pieces to come in just to be able to stretch the floor and take some pressure off of their top 2 scorers. And yet another issue for the Magic, which is pretty common with all young teams, is turnovers. The Magic average 18 turnovers a game. That is horrible, because when you turn the ball over, not only are you limiting your possessions, you're giving extra possessions to the opponent. And depending on what type of turnover it is, it could be giving the opponent easy buckets, transition buckets, 3-on-2 buckets. Stuff like that is just not ideal for your team. And no matter how good of a defensive unit that the Magic put out every night, turnovers isn't going to help you in any way. It really doesn't help you in any sense of the sort, especially because it doesn't allow you to establish any type of offensive momentum going throughout the game. And we know in basketball, momentum is everything. So if you can't establish momentum because you're giving it all to the other team, you're not going to be able to win consistently. And this over-reliance on players like Paolo and Franz doesn't help you at all. There really aren't any players that can really give you any type of, not even high level, but just decent production on the offensive side of the ball. Not Jalen Suggs, not Wendell Carter Jr., nobody. And the only way that you can get better if you're the Orlando Magic is, of course, you want to keep your identity as a defensive-oriented team. I completely understand that. That's who you are. That's how you make your mark in this league. The best teams, especially over the past couple of seasons, with the exception of the Nuggets, have been teams that have been phenomenal on the defensive side of the ball. But you have to improve offensively, because just like how the past couple of teams that won championships have been great defensively, they've been great offensively as well. As a matter of fact, one of the more recent champions, the Denver Nuggets, weren't even that great of a defensive team, and they still won a championship. Why? Because they were one of the best offensive teams the league had ever seen. Now, I'm not asking that of the Magic. I know realistically they're not going to turn into one of the best offensive teams we've ever seen or anything of the sort. But they have to improve on that end of the ball. Honestly, I'm not really too worried about Paolo or Franz. I'm not really too worried about what they're going to bring. I know what they bring to the team. I know what they're going to show up with. It's really more so that supporting cast. Maybe that might be trading some of them away, bringing in some other players, because the Atlanta Magic really like this mode of long, defensive-oriented players, and that's okay. We can tell, because you guys have been one of the best defensive teams throughout the league for the past couple of seasons. But in order to really establish yourself as serious contenders in the league, you have to bring in a legit offensive threat that can take away from Paolo and Franz. Not only that, you just have to bring in some people that can shoot the ball, that can stretch the floor. That way when the slasher like Paolo is coming, or when someone like Franz, all of the offensive attention is not focused on them. Once you give these players that, who knows what can happen. But until you do that, the season's going to continue to be marked by bad shooting, struggles offensively, your defense is going to start falling off a little bit. And I'm not saying you're going to fall out of the playing race, but it doesn't look like you're going to be legit contenders like people were projecting for a minute until you make these changes. But that's just my opinion. That's just based off what I've seen from the Magic this season. I feel like they can use a lot of improvement and just overall be better. And I think it all starts on that offensive end of the ball. And I think they would benefit from bringing in some other players, whether that be through trades, signings, draft, just to kind of help them on this side of the ball. Because I know the Magic can be legit. They have one of my favorite players in Paolo Banchero, and they have another one of my favorite players in Franz Wagner on this roster. I know they can be legit. They just need to put the correct pieces around them to establish themselves to be serious in the NBA. But these are just my opinions. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments about the Magic. Make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you enjoyed it as well. Making videos like this all the time. But that's all I have for now. Until next time, peace.